Data is everywhere. It really is. Transferable into the data career. I have 5 that I always talk about. I think that's the best place to network, or at least start your networking. What I recommend is to consider getting into consulting first.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Data Talk with Doers. I'm your host Neema, and today we have a very special guest joining us. Monica is the founder and chief data enthusiast of Nerd Nourishment. She's also the brilliant mind behind the popular podcast, Data Podcast for Nerds. Monica's dedication to spreading knowledge goes beyond just podcasts. She also shares her expertise and valuable content throughout her newsletter, The Nerd Nourishment, and her YouTube channel, reaching a vast audience of eager learners. Monica is not only an influential content creator but also an esteemed instructor at EBS, where she teaches a fintech bootcamp. Her experience spans across various domains from information security to financial analysis, giving her a unique perspective that she generously shares with her audience. So, without further ado, let's dive right in with our conversation with Monica. Welcome, Monica, for the podcast episode.
Thank you so much, Nima, for having me on your show.
Yeah, I'm so honored to have you. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So let's get started. So can you give a bit of a background, Monica, like your background and how you started with data and where were you before that?
Yeah, so my background is unique, as typically I think everyone's data backgrounds are unique, which is amazing with the data field. So I actually started off, I got my university education in accounting and management information systems. And so my first job in my career was as an auditor. And as an auditor, what you do is kind of test different controls within a company to make sure that they're compliant, everything's working correctly. And at that time, data analytics, to my knowledge, didn't exist. I kind of just stumbled upon it one day while just talking with others and helping out other teams. The financial team specifically, and helping out try to find fraud. And they were using data analytics to find revenue fraud at a client. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. How do I get more into this? What is this data analytics, right? And so from there, I just talked with my manager. I was like, hey, I'm really interested in this data analytics thing. How can I get put on more projects, and what can I do? And just working with my manager, getting more deeply into that, learning more about it. And then that kind of just started my data career, I guess.
Wow, that's definitely nice to know. I think it is somewhere like you have to get into like something is interesting, you will feel like getting into it, right? So yeah, that's definitely nice to know. So, Monica, for individuals who are interested in starting their data journey and they come from a non-technical background, what steps or resources would you recommend they take to acquire necessary skills?
Yeah, definitely. So much like myself, it was kind of a technical career in auditing, but it wasn't a data career, right? I didn't program, I didn't do anything like that at the time. So I brought data to me. I learned about data and how powerful it was, and figured out a way that I can use it in my current auditing position. And so that's what I like to share with others, is that if you're in a non-technical background, data is everywhere. It really is. There is definitely a way that you can use data in any position that you're at right now. Another thing that I talk about are transferable skills, and those are those soft skills that are, transferable into the data career. I have 5 that I always talk about, and that are curiosity, adaptability, communication, problem solving, and attention to detail. And so those 5 are really big for me, in that everyone really has these core skills in any job that you're currently in, that move with you and are very valuable if you want to be a data professional. So I would hold on to those. And if you're trying to get into the data career, highlight those and how important they are. And if you're looking to get those more hard skills, I say Excel is not going anywhere. That's something that I've used in every position that I've ever been in. So that's something to start out on. SQL is another one that I use very heavily in my data career. And then any type of data visualization. It doesn't matter what tool you really start with, but figuring out how to create visualizations and what visualizations to create in certain situations are really important skills to have.
Yeah, that is very nice to know, Monica, because if this questions, right, when asked, most of us look into what are the technical skills that one need to acquire, but you mentioned very important thing is the transferable soft skills, which definitely anybody can learn and learn and at least experience through any job, irrespective of data or not. So that's definitely a great answer, Monica. And the next thing I want to know is volunteer activities and practical experience can be invaluable. Could you suggest some volunteer opportunities or projects that aspiring data analysts can pursue to gain hands-on experience?
I know some counties have volunteer opportunities within like their county offices. The only one that comes to mind with me because of my background in accounting is like tax. You can go in and help people with taxes. I did do some research on this earlier because I was curious about this volunteer opportunity, and I actually stumbled upon something interesting. It's called Data Kind. Data for Good. So that's something I found really interesting. You can sign up and they have different projects available to your different skills, whether it's analysis, visualization, even I think they had some project management and visualizations as well. I thought that was a really interesting website that I stumbled upon.
With respect to volunteer, I have a story to tell as well because when I was into this data field, I was looking for getting an opportunity of working with machine learning. But machine learning, projects are very scarce. Like you don't get it quite often. So I started developing. If you have data all around, just like your previous answer, we have data all around. Why not build our own use cases and build a machine learning, see if it is something that you can talk to your colleagues or something that can be transferred to as a legitimate experience. And similar to what you mentioned, data for good. Yesterday I just came across that website too. They really provide good volunteer opportunities for people who would like to enter into data field.
There's also some communities, if you just want to practice specifically your data visualization skills, if you've ever heard of Tableau's Makeover Monday and Workout Wednesday. It's basically for Tableau is where it started, but you can use any type of visualization, and they provide you each week with a different data set and a different question. And so you can just, play with whatever tool that you want to and share it out with the community and get feedback. It's really fun.
Yeah, that's a great addition, Monica. So the next thing, Monica, is that building a strong network is very crucial these days. And what are some effective ways for aspiring data analysts to network with the industry and connect with like-minded professionals?
Yes, that's a really good question. I am a huge fan of LinkedIn. I think that's the best place to network, or at least start your networking. From there, you can meet lots of individuals in the data community, and from there, you can find out what other communities exist. So I know a lot of data professionals have their own either Discord or Slack communities. Someone that comes to mind is Kadisha Bryan. She has her Data in Motion community, which is really good one to be part of. She's building out some really cool stuff there for the data community.
Yeah. Yeah. So why I asked you this question is because you are someone I feel you have been creating contents on every stream, like newsletters, podcasts, now YouTube channel, and you put on live content as well. Uh, I people like us coming from the outside, we wanted to know your idea on how this you're building content every day. Like how have you leveraged this in terms of your professional career as well? So can you give us how the whole thing has changed your life or anything?
Yeah, so it started out just me wanting to be more involved in the community. I always just used LinkedIn, reading other people's stuff, not really commenting or even liking. I kind of was just like hiding in the shadows. And then I was just like, okay, let's try to do this social media thing. I'm not a big social media person. And so I started becoming active, and what I did was a 100 days of learning. I found out about 100 days of code, and I was like, well, I don't know if I want to technically code for 100 days, but I want to just learn stuff and then share what I'm learning. And at that time, I was just sharing about work, about podcasts, other podcasts that I was listening to, any courses that I was taking. I was taking a lot of just random courses just to learn new things, and then sharing out with the community those learnings. And what I noticed was I myself was learning so much more from that, because I think it's called the term is protege effect, where when you are teaching others, you learn it so much more yourself and it solidifies within your brain, because you have to know it deeper when you're explaining it to others. And so that kind of just, spiraled and got my interest in making nerd nourishment, really. And I was like, oh, I want to do this more and get everyone else excited to learn and share what they're learning.
For the next that I want to know is, as someone that you have worked on several domains, right? What advice would you give aspiring data analysts on finding the right domain? Like how can they continually develop and or enhance their skill set on the domain?
Absolutely. So I would start off, if you have a particular passion in mind for a domain that you want to work in, then you can go on to, Kaggle has a lot of different data sets that you can play with, and just search for ones that are in your domain. If you don't know what domain that you want to even get into, what I recommend is to consider getting into consulting first. So consulting is much like auditing. Within auditing, I was put on different projects with a whole bunch of different clients in different industries. And that's how I got to understand what the different industries were and what I liked, what I disliked. And then I was able to move forward, and that's when I got into the fintech industry. And so with consulting, very much like auditing, you are put onto different projects with different companies and different industries, and then you can figure out what you like and don't like there too.
Like you said, consulting, we'll get exposed to several domains. Like sometimes you work with finance, then you go work with an entertainment industry. So it's different that you can learn a lot. So that's definitely a great knowledge that we all are learning from you. Monica, building a portfolio is definitely something that people look at, like hiring managers or recruiters. So, what kind of projects or data sets would you recommend analysts work on to create an impressive portfolio?
Besides the Kaggle datasets, of course, I like to advise people to work on your own datasets. Because it's something that you know the data, you're very close with it. Therefore, you have the domain knowledge. And domain knowledge is something that's super critical for a data professional to have. And so you might be thinking, like, what's your own data set? So anything like your Fitbit or your Apple Watch, right? Or maybe your smartphone has different, like how many hours that you use your smartphone, what apps that you're looking at, right? You can download that data and start to look at that. LinkedIn, you can look at your LinkedIn. If you're active on LinkedIn, you can have that type of data, or Spotify if you're a Spotify user. And then another really good one of the guests on my podcast brought this up. I think it's genius, is to download your bank statements. You know all of the transactions, you were there, right? And so that one's a really good one. So I'm going to share that one as well.
So that is different ideas that you're giving here, Monica. Like we always go towards getting data sets on Kaggle and or any other government. We have data governance data too, but getting from our data from our own apps or something that we ourselves create on daily basis is something that is nice that you shared. I'm sure people definitely will learn from the different types of ideas that you gave here now. Like you already mentioned soft skills. So, how do you think can an individual coming from a non-tech background develop and highlight these skills to enhance these their prospects as a data analyst? Because it's the same everywhere, but as a data analyst, is it going to change, or what is your take on it?
Yeah, so I think I might say to highlight what you're doing with those soft skills and what you're accomplishing. And also focus on the job description for a job that you are applying for, or if you're not specifically applying for a job, just look at different job descriptions, because they have some of those soft skills that are highlighted. So then just think about the different problems that you're solving with those soft skills and highlight what you have accomplished and how you use those different soft skills.
Yeah, that's something I personally wanted to know because uh, communication is always something that is needed in every aspect, like be it a data analyst or even from an accounting perspective, you have to communicate with the different clients and all. So what you said is right. We'll have to check on each responsibilities and see how we can highlight them and make sure that is getting showcased. So that's a good point, Monica here. And other important topics similar to volunteering is mentorship. So based on my experience, I do not have a I did not have a mentor earlier. Now I see a lot of people. I take points from them. But how important it is a mentorship for your in your perspective, and how do you think a data analyst or aspiring data analyst can seek for a mentor and like gain experience through that?
Yeah, I think that it's very, very important, very critical, very useful. It provides guidance and structure in some cases. And so, in how to find a mentor, I would start with LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn's such a great, great community, especially the data community on LinkedIn. It's really great. There are tons of data professionals on LinkedIn currently that offer mentorships, myself included, if you would like mentorship. A little plug. But yeah, I would start with LinkedIn. Also, consider your manager as well, or any senior person that's on your team. Having a mentor both inside what exactly that you're doing and then also outside of what you're doing are two different perspectives, and I think both are important because if you have somebody that you can go to inside, say, your company, then you guys can kind of talk the same language, you understand each other's problems that are happening within your company and your industry. And then if you have somebody outside, then they have a different perspective of just general advice, right? And it's just so good to have different perspectives when you're applying and learning, trying to learn new things.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a nice point that you mentioned, Monica. Like getting a mentor from inside the company. Not many of us search for a mentor inside the company, like in case a manager. Job search has definitely changed. Now the market is completely in a rough state. So, how do you think now people who are looking to get into data or the data science industry can leverage the social media platform or any job search for that matter? Because traditional is not anymore going to work out. So, what is your take on it, Monica?
Yeah, so again, LinkedIn, you're gonna have to count how many times I've said LinkedIn. It was great. That's how I've gotten pretty much all of my previous positions, to be honest. Being active on the platform gives recruiters those flags, and you'll pop up on the recruiters lists, and they can reach out to you with different jobs that you might be fit for. And also, one thing recently that came to mind through a LinkedIn post was to consider replying to all recruiters that reach out to you, even if you're not interested at the time, to kind of like establish that relationship. That way, in the future, if you are looking for a job, you have someone in your network that you could, research in your messages in LinkedIn and say, I've reached out to this person before, they're in this type of industry. Hey, now I'm looking for a job. Do you still have something available?
Nice that you mentioned the example because not lot of us get recruiter messages that are not of our interest. Like for example, we get reporting analyst roles, but if some person is looking for a machine learning, it's something out of their interest, right? So the thing that you mentioned is building a relationship is definitely will be helpful in the long term perspective, Monica. And so all of us know, right? Field of data is constantly evolving. There is a lot of AI tools coming up, so we need to catch up on that. How do you think, like a person who's new to data, maybe they can get overwhelmed, but how do you suggest people like aspiring data analysts to keep on with the trends and updates?
Yeah, so I'm super passionate about continuous learning, especially in the data field because things are constantly evolving. And so I would just say to keep up to date, uh, be active in the community, and people are constantly posting new things. Consider going to conferences. There are free conferences available out there if you can't go to a conference and pay for it. There are a lot of virtual conferences as well. Also, something that I like to be a part of as well is meetup.com. They have different communities in the data science realm, and so going to those type of meetups is a really good way to stay up to date as well, because they'll have presentations from people of the new things that they're learning as well, and so I think that's a good resource, meetup.com.
Yeah, that is something that people often overlook because Meetup, I feel that was already there in place, but not many people are using the platform. So, lastly, Monica, as an experienced data professional yourself, what would be your word of encouragement to the non tech background, or people who are coming into data field and trying to not get overwhelmed. So, what is your encouragement tip or any lessons that you want to share?
Well, before you said that, my encouragements were to not get overwhelmed. It could be, it could be scary because there are a lot of things going on. But stay focused on your passions and what you're interested in, and be curious. Be resourceful. So, being curious and wanting to ask all of the questions and understand all of the things, and being resourceful helps you know where to go to get the answers to all of your questions.
Great, great. That was a definitely wonderful point to be resourceful, Monica. So that was all I have for this podcast episode. It was definitely great learning experience from you because after seeing your LinkedIn profile, I've been knowing you through several platforms. So it was definitely a great pleasure to have you here and understand how you go through different content and how that has changed your life. I'm sure this podcast has recorded everything that we need to hear from you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me on the show, Nima. It was a pleasure.